Thank you, Mr. District Governor and fellow Toastmasters. It is great to be at Stark Community Toastmaster. The best Toastmasters club in District 10.
Wow.
Now, being a political officer, every club in District 10 is the best club in the district. And Dave is correct. It has been a frenetic pace for me here in northeastern Ohio, and I appreciate your hospitality and warmth. I've had a chance to visit a number of clubs and get out and see all over the place. But none compares with what happened this morning when I walked into this room. Terry, you know what happened.
You were.
Excuse me?
You were empowered.
I was empowered. I was empowered. I walked into this room and Bonnie, one of your officers, came up to me and said, "I have a recommendation for your improvement." I said, "Bonnie, I haven't even spoken yet." And one of the things I love about Toastmasters is the willingness to openly share and get feedback. Now, I've been in office about well over 7 months, and I get feedback from about 250,000 people on a regular basis. And Toastmasters are not afraid to share how I should be doing my job. And that is wonderful to have our members sharing so much. Kim, thank you for a wonderful speech. I got hungry, I wanted to drive, and I realized why I've been on the fast lane for so many, many years. My speech today is the 3 T's of Toastmaster. And I chose this in honor of Daryl and Rose, my point number 1, because point number 1 starts with a T, point number 2 starts with a T, and point number 3 starts with a T. And my point number 1 is that as Toastmasters, you need to learn to tell your story. Everybody here has a story. And the world needs to hear your story. Your education, your background, your family, your hopes, your dreams. Telling a story is still the most powerful method of communication. Look at history. The great religious leaders of all time, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, they all spoke in stories. We called them parables. Your story tells everything about you. Nobody else can tell your story. Your story is interesting. Your story connects you with the world. Now, I come from a Toastmasters club where there are a lot of engineers. And I met an engineer here today. Where is Anand? There you are, from New Delhi, India. Good to have you. Are you an engineer?
Yes.
Yes. Give him a round of applause. Because I will be in India next month. And I've noticed engineers love to share. Greg, you too, sorry. Give Greg a round of applause. I know that engineers like to stand in front of an audience and share statistics and share data, correct?
Yeah.
But does statistics and data connect people? Do you feel warm and fuzzy about the speaker who has the expansive PowerPoint with all the data and statistics? No. But how do you feel about a speaker who tells in an authentic, warm way their story? You never forget it, right? And it is the story that I love most about Toastmasters because it is speech number 1, right?
Yeah.
The icebreaker speech is speech number 1. Now here's the other reason why you need to tell your story. It is your story that gets you noticed, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, it's not important how many people you know. It's who knows you. And when you tell your story, you get noticed. Suddenly, you're not just a face in the crowd. You're Rose. And I know Rose. I know her story. And that is what creates the special connection in Toastmasters. Now, my point number 2, which is another T, which is tune your message. And that's the other thing we do in Toastmasters, right? We tune the message. Most speeches fail because they are answering questions nobody is asking. Okay? Most speeches fail because they are answering questions nobody is asking. I learned that very early in my Toastmasters career, that I had to speak about something that's interesting to the audience. Now, how many people here have ever sat in an audience and you're present physically, but your mind is far, far away? Hopefully not today. Well, we've all been there, haven't we? And being an effective Toastmaster is tuning the message so that you speak to the interests, the wants, and the desires of the audience. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, how could I know your interests and wants? Well, I know you're Toastmasters, right? I know you'd be kind of interested to hear who this organization elected as international president. And I also wanted to share a little bit about my story. Dave shared that I was a student at the University of California. I was actually born here in the Midwest. I was born outside of Chicago, raised in a single-parent household. I had a wonderful, loving mother. She had a tremendous positive mental attitude. Every month, she paid the bills with a smile. The creditors preferred cash. My first memory of communication was grabbing on my mother's pant leg because I didn't want to go to kindergarten. I loved staying home with my mother. And she said, "Michael, you need to go." I said, "Why? Why do I need to go?" She said, "You need to go because you need to learn to talk and act smart." I got to kindergarten. 2 weeks later, I was in the principal's office for talking and acting smart. Later in life, I learned how important it is to communicate and communicate effectively. But giving a speech was particularly hard for me because I had a little condition, and I'm kind of dating myself about this, but this was kind of before the discovery of Ritalin. You've heard of Ritalin. And I had a little thing called ADD. Have you ever heard of that at all? Right? It stands for Attention Deficit. Sir, that's a really nice tie. That's the Donald Trump. Oh, Donald Trump brand. Okay. So I had this little challenge of staying focused, okay? Of staying on topic and not getting directed off into other topics. Toastmasters taught me to tune my message. Toastmasters taught me to tell my story. Tell my story. And the third thing that I learned from Toastmasters is to touch the audience. Touch the audience. Terry, it is always good to have you. Do you feel touched today?
Yes.
I hope you do. Because I've noticed that in speaking, if you never touch the audience, you never leave that lasting impression. And telling a story will touch the audience. The year was 1981. I was a high school student, and I was serving as an intern in Washington, D.C. I had a low-level position. I was answering mail, and I thought it was the most exciting thing in the world. The congressman's administrative assistant came running into the office and said to me, Michael, I have one more ticket for the State of the Union address of President Ronald Reagan. I was so excited, I grabbed it out of the air. And I sat in the House gallery and listened to President Ronald Reagan. I noticed the way he was able to make a personal touch with everybody in the audience. I couldn't figure out how this man was able to do this. This was an audience of thousands, maybe around the world millions, but everybody felt touched. And that experience is what created my interest in Toastmasters and public speaking and communication, because I realized what a difference it makes when there is a touch. Now, speaking in many ways is kind of like spontaneous combustion, right? You never know what's going to happen in front of an audience. And that's the exciting part about it. When you touch the audience, you never forget it. How many people here like ballroom dancing? Anyone? Oh, good. Marcia, how often do you go ballroom dancing?
I don't. My husband has a bad back. I don't go dancing.
Well, tell him to stop practicing law and have some fun with you and go out and do some ballroom dancing. Because ballroom dancing is movement, it is artistry, and it is romance. And the best analogy I can think of to what it's like between the speaker and the audience is that movement that happens between two people in ballroom dancing. The closer the speaker gets to the audience, the simpatico, the more the magic happens. And it's just like dancing, the closer the two people get together. When you tell your story, when you tune your message, you get close to the audience. When you do it all, you tell your story, you tune your message, and you touch your audience, there is a lasting impact. Tests show that people will forget today what I looked like, what I said. You'll forget the room, but you'll never forget how you felt when the speaker speaks to the audience. The most common question I get from corporate leaders around the world is, why Toastmasters? And my answer is really very simple. Toastmasters is crucial because words matter and ideas count. What you say and how you say it makes a big difference in life. And as Kim said so well, the way you communicate is the launch pad for leadership and influence in life. When you tell your story, when you tune your message, when you touch your audience, you make all the difference. One of my favorite quotes is from Jack Welch, and he once said, "Take control of your destiny, or somebody else will." Mr. Toastmaster.